What if the problem isn't the person, but the plan? Hi, I'm Laura Hansen Breksa, and I'm inspired by people and their stories. And welcome to Know It, Live It, conversations with people who live passion on purpose and purpose with passion. Kids with autism, limited but capable, singular but categorized in society, but not always part of it, needing what we all need: opportunity, understanding, compassion, and a plan.
I'm reminded of a family that I've worked with where, like, I would present something and the mom was like, "Okay, I'm gonna do it." And I said and I paused and I was like, "Okay, so now think about your worst day. Could you do it on that day?" And they were like, "No." I said, "Okay, then this isn't the right plan." Because I need you to be able to do what you can do even on your worst day.
Hello, I am here with Carolyn Rivera. I met Carolyn when she was 10. She was so cute. I was part of a leadership program that helped put on activities for these 10-year-old girls. And she was there and she was just, I don't know how to describe her. She was just so cute. And I loved her from the start, from meeting her. And I'm glad she's here to talk about what she's doing now because I am quite impressed with her. She doesn't know this, but I've kind of been watching her grow up from afar. I hope that doesn't sound creepy. But welcome to Know It, Live It, Carolyn.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
She is now a board certified behavior analyst. Now, Carolyn, how did you know you wanted to help families? And how do you put that into your life with purpose and intention?
Well, it's a long process. So, I've always gravitated towards those with disabilities and specifically autism. And so I would help out in the classroom in elementary school. I even went to a summer camp where I got to assist and kind of be an aide, even though I was also still in elementary school. And I volunteered at a disabled people center, and so it's kind of always been part of my life. And I just continued to go that way. I was planning to go a different way, but then I served a church mission, and when I got home, there was a job waiting for me in my LinkedIn inbox, and I was like, "Sure, I'll try it out." It was always kind of my go-to to work with those with different needs, and so that's how I got into my current field of ABA, and that's how I started on the journey of figuring out what that was and moving forward to and into compassionate care.
Tell me more what that is, compassionate.
So compassionate care for me is looking at the family as a whole and not seeing them as a problem to be fixed, but really looking to improve the quality of life of not just children, but the whole family unit. Lots of families with children on the autism spectrum. I would say that that's kind of my main focus is the autism community. The instances are growing. Um, there's a lot of research. Um, there isn't one answer as to why. And so I'm kind of there to help children learn communication, social skills, and how to regulate themselves with, those challenges that they may face, things that they might be a little more sensitive or aware of. And what I do is find ways to help change the environment to better facilitate growth and calmness where I can. Um, I like to find out all about the parents, where they're at, and I always tell them, "My job is to figure out how to best help you because my job is to work myself out of a job." Yeah.
So, how has your mission that you mentioned How did that help you? You said you came home, there's a job in your inbox, LinkedIn inbox. Like, wow. But how do you think your mission experience, well, blended with your natural personality that I remember as a little girl, but how did it all blend together?
Well, the mission I mean, everyone says the mission is pretty much preparation for life, and I would say that that's true. But with my field in particular, I would say my mission was pretty much my field. And that's because I go into people's homes and I need to meet them where they are. I need to teach them of what I know to be true based off of research and empirical data. And I need to troubleshoot if there's something not working. I need to take data, leave commitments, and the next time I meet with them, I need to follow up and make sure that that was what was followed. And if not, see why. And so the mission really, really prepared me. I would say too, it let me see people in their lowest points and their highest points. And overall, the overarching thing is my mission let me just love people where they were. And I need to have that in my job. I need to love the people where they are. And if you hear me teach, you will always hear me say that people are the products of their learning history and their current environments, and it takes blame out of it. And so that's another part of compassionate care. I do not blame people for the way that they behave because the way that they are is kind of the product of what has been around them. And I know that people are usually doing the best that they can with the circumstances that they are in and the learning history that they've had.
Those two things again. Tell me the two things that you teach again.
Yeah, so people are the products of their learning history and their current environment.
And current, I blended those together.
Yep.
So there, say it again.
So
Learning history
they're
and
yep,
current environment.
learning their learning history and their current environment.
Learning history and current environment.
Example. Um, let's see. Learning history. Let's say every time you wanted something, all you had to do was scream. And so your family knew exactly what that meant. So it got you what you needed in that moment. And so that's the learning history. You learned, I scream, I get what I need. I scream, I get what I need. And so the current environment supports that because that's what works.
Okay. All right.
That gets me what I need. My family knows what that means, and they will get me what I need.
So when your learning history is scream to get what I want, and then you're in a current situation where that no longer works because you've been moved to a new home or a new school or the parent changes, is that when we have wah?
Absolutely. There's actually a name for that. Um,
It's not wah.
yeah. Yeah. Some some ABA terminology is, when something is no longer getting the thing that makes it work,
Mhm.
we call that extinction. And then when you see bigger behavior and maybe different behavior, we call that an extinction burst.
So it's kind of wah. Just do it again.
It is, it bursts.
So that is a challenge. So when you go in and you are in their homes and you're looking at these families and you're getting to know them, there is going to be change, but you're going to find out what the family needs. Because by the time they're looking at you, they've gotten to a point. They've asked to see someone, or someone has recommended you see them. I mean, why are you in their homes? How have you gotten there?
So for the most part, our services are covered by insurance. And so we usually are one of the first steps if a child is diagnosed with autism. In that diagnostic report, it is ABA services. And so we are usually one of the very first services. I was just talking to a mom today, and they let me know that the the diagnosing doctor said that, if you can't get speech and occupational therapy right now, go for ABA, like, focus on ABA. It's one of the what's that word? Like, covered empirical it's the thing that has shown that it actually works, to help children with autism.
It's interesting. So are people surprised when their kids are diagnosed as autistic, or do they go, "Oh, yeah, that makes sense"?
It really depends. I think even if families know something's different, the diagnosis can be quite a shock. And so I always want to be sensitive to that. And it's a good thing to think about because all of a sudden these expectations, these ideas that you had for your child are not that, or they might not be that. And so your world kind of gets shaken when you get that diagnosis. And I've heard a lot of families just explain that process to me. And it's a challenging one. It's a hard thing to learn for the most part.
So you're one of the first people they meet that isn't a doctor after they found this out.
Yeah.
So when you are meeting with these families in their homes and you have this learning and you've seen other families, how do you meet them where they are and let them guide them through the process of going where they need to be? How do you just not step in there and tell them what to do?
Okay. So I I will present a plan and, say from what I've seen, this is what we're recommending. Now, before services even start, there's an assessment. And so we go into the home, we meet the family, or if it's in a clinic, the family might come to the clinic and we assess the child. And so we let them know this is kind of what we're recommending. In those instances, we ask them their main concerns and we let them know that it's going to be a blend of what they deem as important and what we see needs to be done. And so we also have to comply with insurance. So not everything that we may want to work on or parents might want to work on can be accepted by insurance. And so we let them know that as well. Now, once services start or we start meeting with the families, I see where they're at. I ask them how things are going. I kind of start with like concerns, how things are going. We talk about what they see, and then I start to recommend things to try. And now part of my field is we have to meet with families at least once or twice a month. It depends on what we're authorized through insurance for, but we have to meet with families. And so usually that consists of training on the techniques we use, why we're doing what we're doing, so that they can carry it on when we're no longer there, like if something new were to arise. So it's really important that you know, we say that it has social validity, that it's something that's important for the family. And so I do. I present an idea and then we see how to work with it. I'm like, hey, this really needs to get done. How can we make it happen?
It can become a mess. And so
Yeah,
empowering parents, I imagine, can bring part of the peace that you're talking about because they can also be compassionate to themselves and say, no, this is whatever the cause that makes them comfortable in seeing, but not the blaming.
exactly. And
Do I have some of that right?
yes. And I'm reminded of a family that I've worked with where like I would present something and the mom was like, okay, I'm going to do it. And I said, and I paused and I was like, okay, so now think about your worst day. Could you do it on that day? And they were like, no. I said, okay, then this isn't the right plan. Because I need you to be able to do what you can do even on your worst day.
Well, that's wonderful advice. Perfect for New Year's resolutions too. You do it on your worst.
Yes,
Don't make
well,
promises on the day that you can't do, and I love that thought.
ex exactly, and that's that's something I tell staff all the time about compassionate care, is just because the client that you're working with was able to do it at an 80 or 100% yesterday, does that does not mean that they're at that same level today, and so you need to meet them where they are and not put it over the top because progress, even if it looks different than yesterday, is progress without blowing it all up and having to start all over again and build rapport.
Yeah, we don't wanna do that. Weekly
Yeah,
challenges and day days, right?
yeah,
So, when you're working with the children directly, do you feel that you understand them based on
yes.
your experience with the families or your personality? Why can you connect?
I would say that even before I know the families, I really connect with, children with autism, and I would say that I understand the children with autism that are unable to communicate vocally more. So, they may have no communication skills. I am able to pick up on the nuances of how they are communicating and why. I'm reminded of one experience, I forgot to mention, before I went on my mission, I did have a job in the school district where I was a one-on-one aide in a classroom, and I remember just knowing how to help this one student. She was having trouble making a decision, and I knew she just didn't wanna talk, and I get that. I'm the same way, and so I put up my hands. I'm like, "This is yes, this is no. Which one?" And so she touched it, and I was like, "Okay, I get that." And, I think I'm a little bit closer to it because I grew up with learning differences, and I kinda see the different ways that someone could look at something and experience something, and I think it just helps me relate a lot better.
So, Carolyn, what are the ranges of autism? And I know they say spectrum, and I've just recently heard people say it's more like stars in the sky where they're up and down, not necessarily a range or spectrum. That's not how she would describe it. She'd describe it like stars in the heavens, or some are closer and some are farther away. So when I use the spectrum, I think you now know what I'm talking about. But what is a spectrum of autistic kids do you work with?
Yeah, so I in my different settings, I've worked with the whole spectrum, and there are 3 severity levels: level 1, level 2, and level 3. Level 3 being the most severe as they define it. And there is no longer an Asperger's diagnosis, and so everyone is grouped into these severity levels. And I want to talk to the idea of profound autism too, which is, I follow a few families of children that have profound autism, and that might look like severe intellectual disability with the autism and dangerous behavior. And so it can be from that level to struggling with social skills, maybe at level 1, maybe some struggles with communication. And, you know, as you said, everyone is so different. No child looks the same, even in the same family. Even if both are on the spectrum, no child looks the same. They're very different, just like anybody. Um, but how they kind of group them is by some similar deficits or excesses.
Mm. So when you're working with a child and you have this understanding of them, you know when they're just faking it, right? Like they just don't want to talk or when they just are tired and they're just done
Yes.
with it for the day and they're smarter and they know how to play it. Come
Yeah, so I always tell staff, give yourself grace because I supervise staff who provide the direct services. I say give yourself grace to learn your client. I say give it like depending on the setting you're in, give it a month. And then you'll start to see what they're capable of, what they know, what they don't know. And that has helped me to know like, oh, they came in having a bad day because they were here 30 minutes later, and that is gonna throw off the whole day. And so that's when I could say, be mindful of that. Don't push it. Like, meet them where they are and pick up where we left off the next day.
It's relaxing. Meet them where they are. Pick up where you left off at last day because today is not the only day.
Today's not the only day. And one of my favorite quotes is, they're not giving you a hard time. They're having a hard time.
And parents don't always tell you everything that's going on.
No, and I think part of it can also be, not knowing what's relevant because it might just be that's how it is.
Mhm.
That's
Hard to
just
know. Yeah.
what it is.
We don't know sometimes what the other options are.
Exactly, yeah.
What did it take to become certified anyway?
Yeah, schooling. So I already had my undergraduate degree in psychobiology because I wanted to go into neuroscience because I wanted to understand why people did what they did. I didn't know this field existed yet. It did, but I didn't know it. And so I already had my degree. And so once I got into the field and then found out there was more, I was like, you know what? Like, I've been doing this. I want to pursue it. So it requires a master's and there's different pathways to get it. You can either like already have a master's in a different field and then do the necessary field work and then experience hours and do it that way and then sit for the board exam. Or you could do a whole master's program, which is what I did. And so I completed a whole master's program online at Florida Institute of Technology. I'm very biased for that school. It's such a good program. It is such a good program because they teach you the soft skills of the field too. And after you do your coursework or during your coursework, you also need 1,500 to 2,000 experience hours. And 60% of those hours, at least at the time of this recording, is what you would do as a supervisor, what you would do as a BCBA. So you have to get experience doing what you're going to be doing. And after that, after you get your experience hours, you have to have a supervisor sign off on it every month. You have to complete certain tasks. After all that is done with your coursework, then you have to sit for the board exam. And that is like a 4-hour exam. And I think it's like 200 questions. It's all multiple choice, thankfully. But you definitely have to prepare. You have to prepare for it. I know quite a few people who didn't pass and have had to take it multiple times. I was blessed to only have to take it once. And so, yeah, that's the process. The whole process, I think, took me 3.5, almost 4 years.
So tell me you had learning differences and you got your master's. It took almost as much time as a bachelor's usually takes.
Yes.
So when you were in school, how did you finagle the learning process that's traditional, the way traditional education is presented? How did you filter that through and been able to report back? Tell what magic potions or whatever did you use to get that done? Because that's pretty that's some things that other people can learn from.
I'm really glad that you asked because it was all about learning how to learn.
Yes.
And I was blessed to be able to go to a high school for students with learning differences that taught me how to learn. I remember it was the first time in my life realizing I wasn't stupid because I had been told otherwise my whole life in the school system. And so all of a sudden, when I started learning, windows opened up, like doors, windows, everything, limitless. And it took a lot of patience. It took a lot of trial and error. And, for me, I going back, people are like, I'm good at English. I'm good at math. Well, me, I was like, I'm good at neither. I didn't have one or the other. I liked science. And so I remember particularly my process for writing papers. It was so hard for me to internally organize any thoughts. So I discovered the process of writing each thought on a single piece of paper, and each single piece of paper was a paragraph that I wanted to put into the paper. And so instead of organizing internally, I found out how to organize externally of what people can usually do in working memory. And I carried that with me to college. And, there were other things I learned about learning. I did have accommodations. The one that I used the most was extended time. And extended time for assignments and tests. That was the one I used the most. We tried note taking, that didn't work. And so I just asked for the PowerPoint slides ahead of time so that I didn't have to write everything on the slide and what the teacher was saying, so I could just focus on what the teacher was saying. As soon as I had the PowerPoint slides, I was fine. And so I went through that process, and I remember my sophomore year taking chemistry. And that was so hard. I knew it was a weed out class, but I wasn't going to let it weed me out. I fought tooth and nail in that class. And I was in every office hour. I was in every session that I could be in to learn this stuff. In high school, I loved chemistry. In college, it was a nightmare. And so I came to the realization that I need to learn a new way to learn. That's the first wall that I hit in college, where I realized how I had learned to learn was not working. And I needed to find a new way to learn. And that was by every waking minute living and breathing chemistry. And I remember the end of the semester. Yeah, the end of the semester, my professor said, I didn't think you were going to make it. And I was like, but I did. I did. And then the next semester, I remember we had to have partners for lab, but she didn't make me have a partner. And I was like, thank you. She's like, you can work alone. And I was like, thank you. And I remember one time running a lab, and then she grabbed the book. She's like, you have the book numbers. And I'm like, see, I need to work alone. But I digress. I learned to learn, and I used that skill through college. And then when it came to my master's, the only accommodation I got was transcripts of the videos. I barely used that. I didn't really use that. So I pretty much did my master's without accommodations. And the way I did that, I set, especially because it was online, I knew what I needed to do to succeed. And assignments were due Tuesday. So for me, assignments were due Saturday. And what that meant is that right after I got off of work, I went home and studied and studied and studied. I was talking to my husband and he was like, yeah, I remember that one semester where you just woke up, went to work, studied, ate, and just did it all over again and nothing else. And I was like, yeah, that there were a couple semesters like that. And so I gave myself the time because I knew I had to work extra hard to understand. Even though this is a field that comes naturally to me, I wanted to know it like the back of my hand. And so I got accommodations on my board exam, but I didn't really use it. I got extended time, but I didn't need it because I was able to move through the material. Now, that's not to say that I don't still have challenges. Like, I'll be going through life, and then something comes up, and I'm like, oh, yeah, there it is. There's the block. And so then I know I just need to find a different way around it. Like, I can feel it. Like, when something happens, I'm like, oh, there it is. So it's not gone. It's just I've learned so many strategies that I can work around it.
And a lot of those strategies you just had to do by trial and error. Or
Yes.
did you get shown ways and you picked ways and tried them? Or is it a mix?
Probably a mix, but I think mostly trial and error. I learn a lot by trying and failing and realizing that that didn't work, but I'm also a perfectionist and will do everything I can to not have subpar.
That's extraordinary that you worked so hard and didn't give up.
Experiences have definitely helped me to know where to meet people where they are. Like, I remember being in high school and being like, I wanna create programs for kids like me to let them know they can do it. And that's kind of evolved over time. But I think, like, and this popped into my head, like, one of the gifts that I have is what I call seeing the unseen. And usually that's people. And I acknowledge them and I see them, people that people normally just look over or may not notice. Like, I'm always great friends with the janitor. I love seeing people. I love seeing people.
So that mountain that you had to climb, you really did get a better view of life from the top when you got there. Is there anything you want to say if the whole world saw this podcast?
Life is hard. Life is so hard. But we're all in it to learn and to find those that we can trust and rely on and grow with. No, we're ever made to be alone. Ever. Even though sometimes it feels like we are, we never really are. And one day everything's gonna make sense, even if it doesn't now. And even if we don't know it, we are very loved. Very, very loved. Even if people in our immediate circle may not know how to show that, we are. Very, very loved. And we matter.
Well, thank you very much. Is there a healthy relationship in your life that could be even better if you met that person where they are? Try it and see. Thank you for listening to Know It, Live It, and my conversation with Carolyn Rivera, a person who lives passion on purpose. And always live what you know.